Well, hello, and thank you very much, everyone, for attending. And there's a lot of everyone there. Over 1,300 people registered for this webinar. So thank you very, very much, everybody, for taking the time out to join us here today. For those of you who are just joining us to begin with, excuse me, I'm Larry Wilson with SafeStart. The original intent of these expert panel webinars was to provide, if you will, reality versus theory. There's a lot of academics, or if you will, people out there who can give you advice in terms of, should your mission statement have a zero harm or not. But eventually, somebody has to decide. And when we looked at things like complacency in COVID, that was the first webinar. The second one we did was leading indicators. What do you rely on? And that was a very interesting webinar in that we all sort of agreed that if you had good leading indicators and the quality wasn't slipping, in other words, they weren't necessarily garbage observations or inspections that didn't happen. As those leading indicators were going up, injuries and incidents were coming down. But we didn't have a lot of examples, nor with the expert panel in Europe or North America, although we're going to sort of have another one of those tomorrow, in terms of people who've been able to go into a boardroom or an executive office with some proactive leading indicators, some spreadsheets and some graphs, and actually get the company to make a significant change if those leading indicators were going the wrong way. So the original intent was to provide more reality versus theory or advice. But we've also uncovered a few new things as we've been going on. The last webinar that we did 2 weeks ago was on zero harm. And another thing that I thought was very interesting that came out of that webinar was that if you really wanted to get your employees to approach safety on a 24/7 basis, it was very difficult if your goals were simply to achieve a certain number of recordables or lost time accidents in the next year. So I'm not promising you that there will be history in the making today, and I certainly don't want to put any pressure on our panelists either. But these are the people who have to make these tough decisions. And today's session is on felt leadership. And what we mean by felt leadership, it's maybe more of a common term in North America, but real, genuine, in other words, your employees can actually feel the commitment. It's not just words or flag waving from the leaders, and that this would also influence their behavior when they were driving a car or off the job. So we have with us tonight, well, tonight, I'm in Canada, your morning in India. Dr. Pravina Dorothy, she's with JLL. She's the corporate EH&S manager for West Asia. And Dr. Pravina has been with us on the past 3 previous webinars. So Dr. Pravina, thank you very much for taking the time to join us tonight. I've also got to get my glasses out here again. I'm not sure exactly where everybody is in your screen, but in my screen, bottom right, is Hector Salazar. And Hector and I've known each other for, I won't go how many years, but we worked together in projects North America, South America. He's originally from Venezuela. He's a Canadian citizen, as well as myself. That's why he's so good looking. Hector works now at HMEL Refinery in Batindra. I've been up there. It is a huge complex. They've managed, I'll let Hector tell you, but they've managed to keep going during the COVID crisis. And Hector, again, thanks very much for joining us. At the bottom middle of my screen is Ravi DePola, and Ravi is it's a little company, Tata. You may have heard of it. He's with the the coffee division. And I've met Ravi on several occasions. He's been out to SafeStart Train the Trainer session, but I also met him again at the Tata Conclave when I was speaking there just at the beginning of February. And you know, Ravi, it seems like an eternity ago now with all the COVID and everything that was out there. But thank you very much for joining us, Ravi. Top right-hand corner of my screen is Narayan Shadari, and Narayan is with he's with, well, Reliance Pipelines, I think, if I've got it right, Narayan, or with the pipeline division now that is slightly separate from Reliance. You can explain that a little more accurately, hopefully, for us. And at the bottom left-hand corner is Arun Submarian. I'm sorry if I got it wrong. Arun. I've been at Arun's site in Coromandel in VSAG. It's a fertilizer plant. Excellent operation. And also really good leadership support. At least none of them fell asleep during the leadership session that I did there. So I thought that was great. So let me, if I can, just again start with you, Dr. Pravina. Well, wait a minute. I guess I should just explain a little bit more about this session, everybody, and read my script like I'm supposed to. But there's little dispute about the importance of senior leadership when it comes to managing health and safety to all the legal and environmental standards. Without resources, these standards cannot be met or maintained. But beyond that, the question is real, genuine, or what is commonly called felt leadership enough to achieve zero injuries or world-class safety? So if leadership was enough all by itself to prevent injuries, then children and teenagers would not get hurt, but they get hurt and killed accidentally at almost twice the rate of adult workers. And when you think about 24/7, you know, what about critical decisions? So this panel and this panel discussion is really about, is felt leadership really enough for safety excellence, or is it just the beginning? And we're going to end up with a question that Ravi wanted me to ask, just because he thought, you know, what a lot of people listening are in the safety profession. And so, you know, Ravi was kind enough to say he'd also talk a bit about how you might be able to, some things you might be able to do to get a bit more support from your senior leadership. So with all of that to do, let me start, Dr. Pravina, if I could. You have a good leadership there at JLL. I mean, I almost know the answer to this question, so it feels a bit redundant, but is that enough for safety excellence, or is there more? And maybe if you could just give us a brief update on how things are going with COVID in Bangalore.
Sure. Thank you, Larry. Thank you for this opportunity for me to be part of the panel for the fourth time, right? This is.
Yes, but thank you.
I'm honored to be part of this specialist panel. And I would like to start upon about JLL. JLL is a global real estate services and investment company with a presence in almost over 80 countries. And in India, we have presence in almost 30 states and union territories. And we have got almost 12,000 employees. And the biggest challenge, which I had been talking about in previous sessions also, is that our people are basically working at client sites, most of them, 90% of them. That itself is the biggest challenge. And now I would like to touch upon the COVID situation, then we'll go to the leadership. Regarding COVID, yes, we are seeing increase in the number of COVID cases. During lockdown, which was in May, first lockdown, we had almost 500 to 600 cases in Karnataka, where Bangalore is. Now, after a couple of months, we have almost 112,000 cases post-lockdown. And in between, there was another lockdown, which the government was trying to reduce the increase in number of cases. And by far, all the essential services are working. I mean, it is not a complete lockdown for us. So partially, we are operating in all our sites. And the government is taking all initiatives which it could in terms of containing and isolating the cases. So which had actually kept a tab on the increase in rate, I would put it. And regarding leadership, of course, I do agree that leadership is the foundation of safety excellence. Without having a strong leadership, a leadership who is an informed decision makers, safety systems won't sustain. And in addition to the leadership, we would require a system. As I said, we are spread across India and we are not in one group to sustain. So communication plays a very important role to ensure that our people at site, account teams spread across are able to experience the leadership commitment. And then, of course, we have the training protocols, reporting protocols. The entire system matters when it comes to safety excellence. So, and employee engagement, that is also a very important part of safety excellence. If I'm just going to talk from my end that safety is important and there is no one to listen and implement, it is of no use. So employee engagement is also something which we work upon to ensure that we have a safety excellence in place.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think that, well, I know I've talked to you about this offline, Dr. Praveen. I think that it's very difficult to get your employees to sort of pick up the ball and roll with it if in a total vacuum of leadership support or commitment. I think that you're like our experience with it is that we make it work, but boy, it's uphill, really. So thank you for that. Let me just Mr. Hector, I was going to ask you sort of the same question. Like I said, I know you've got good leadership at your folks, and they're in, they really do strive for the, as you say, the incident and injury-free workplace. Is that enough, Hector? And with all of the contractors that you folks have there, is it possible? Is it possible for the commitment of your site leadership to be felt by any of those folks, or is that really just an unrealistic ask?
So, Larry, I think the leadership here is have a very important role, because it's not about also the leadership coming from the main company, in this case from HML, that is the owner of the project. We're talking here about create leadership with the other companies that are partnered with us in this project. We have here in total more than 40 subcontractors, major companies like Technimon, L&T, B&R, EIL. So we have international companies like GE involved in this project, Siemens, Atlas Copco. So it's a worldwide corporations involved in this project. So we need the leadership also to join with us and to partnership with us to create what we are doing here. So in addition to that, Larry, is the other factor that is the leadership during the coronavirus situation. It's an emergency situation. It's a global emergency situation. So you need a very conductive leadership to move forward. So that you need to put together a lot of willingness and a lot of power from the different companies to keep this project going. So in this time that we have been during the coronavirus, we have been still keeping our operation up So we face a lot of downs at the beginning of the coronavirus, but you imagine that we need to actually have the power to call all the companies involved in this project to put together the right number of people, the skills. Let me tell you, when you're doing a project like this, you need men that maybe they're not here in India, and men that maybe they have schedules that they have to go to different places in the world, part of the licensors, the people that have to license the technology that we have here, expert for heavy lifting from companies like Mammoth, for example, from Sarens. And these people have been coming in and out from India during these days, during this time, and we have the necessary workforce and skills to move this project forward. So this demands a lot of leadership. It's the only way that you can keep this going. So in other hands, you know that when you are in a crisis situation, it's a challenge to keep the system going. Keep yourself inside the boundaries of your system and your values, because it's really challenging and it's a very unique moment. So you need to actually have a lot of sense of the responsibility that you have with your company, with your employees, with the community to keep this going. So I think that is a real challenge individually and as a group, as a company. And I think that this challenge is right now creating a lot of learning process that we for sure we're going to be using for the future. Absolutely.
Yeah, hey, Hector, how is it in Batindra right now in terms of COVID? Is it lockdown or is it or things moving?
Well, everything is moving, Larry. You know, Punjab in general is one of the areas less affected in India. I think that the local government have been doing a fantastic job from the preventive standpoint. So despite that we have here more than 25,000 people in between the operation in the refinery and the workers, we only report at today 180 cases, positive cases. Most of these 180 positive cases related to the refinery have been actually filtered in our quarantine colony outside the operation. So these people never step inside the refinery. So, and we have a very close coordination with the local authorities. I think they have been doing a fantastic job, and also HML, our doctors and the human resource department are doing a fantastic job in coordination with the local government to keep the system going.
Wow. 25, that's amazing, Hector. 25,000 people, 180 cases. Wow. Okay, so Mr. Arun, you also have very good safety and very supportive management group, and I've met most of them when I was out there. Do you think good leadership alone is enough for world-class safety, or is it just a beginning?
Right. Thank you, Larry. See, yeah, that's the right question. That any company that's progressive in nature will be always hungry for more. And it's same on the felt leadership. For the first time when I heard on felt leadership is from the DuPont, a terminology coined by DuPont. And when we talk to people, always the point that brought in is that walk the talk is felt leadership. But what I can just mention that there are 4 quadrants to the felt leadership. That's on walk the talk. I mean, first the one is to give the direction, then walk the talk, that is to run the system and cascade it. So if you go by each one of them, give direction, unless the leaders know exactly what the organization needs, what is the short-term and long-term goals, and what changes do they want to bring in so that they see the improvement in the system. Unless they are completely aware of that, it's very difficult for leaders to direct and get a result out of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I've seen is what I find difficult in some of the leaders is providing some practical examples that they actually do on a day-to-day basis to leave the commitment that they have made to reach the goals. So that's one difficult thing I've seen when it comes to giving direction. Coming to walk the talk is the most visible leadership format or the factor. But there are 2 blind spots which I see there. One of the things is walking the talk is not necessarily a event that is well planned or for a short time, and that is done consistently all the time, even when no one is watching you. So that's one blind spot where people have to get it right. The other blind spot which I see is that when you go for a field walk, people gravitate towards conditional inspection more than getting into a meaningful dialogue with the people and really understanding that, or making use of the opportunity to understand that how the people have understood the direction given by them. Is it really working? Are your communication tools or other programs working well? That the direction given by you is really understood by the team. Coming to the next thing is on running the system. You often hear, when you talk to people, you often hear that, oh, the system is too complicated, it doesn't work, too much of paperwork. Okay, we adapt a lot of systems, but we see some sort of frustration sometimes. And of course, these systems are made by you and the leaders. And when I say leaders, it's not only the guys on the top, it's across the organization should understand that it's your own system. And if it doesn't help, change it, but be careful. When I say be careful, I mean that a systemic problem is not always related to the system, but it's mostly how it is being used. Are you really using it well? So that's very, very important. Then coming to the last thing which I was mentioning is on cascading. It is great to have vision, strategy, good policy hanging on the wall, and a lot of dialogues and all these, but they all do not speak enough on the visible felt leadership. And what I see is, how do we cascade the direction down to the organization? Is there a buy-all by the people? How do you communicate? Okay, once you communicate, as Pravina was saying, that when you communicate, there should be somebody to listen to you. Once you communicate and people have listened to you, have you set the accountability of people? Have you done that? And how do you manage them? Do you get these people accountable, and do you measure it, and do you manage it? That's very, very important when I speak about cascading. And what I see that many organizations fail to do that. And the toughest, or when we try to measure all these factors of visible leadership, what I see that the weakest quadrant is the cascading.
Arun, I agree. That's one of the, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to be too prosecution leading the witness here, but the being able to get it right down to the shop floor level, to the people, and cascade that commitment down to there has been one of the big drawbacks of the top-down approach, is that it gets almost all the way down, but not all the way down in a lot of places, right? But let me move on to Ravi, if I could. Mr. Ravi, I got to meet so many of your senior managers at the conclave in Mumbai, and I think it's 39 different divisions at Tata. I'm not sure if I've got that exactly right, but pretty much every one of those managers seemed sincere, genuine to me. So I was pretty impressed. But there was more than just leadership at that conclave. You guys had all kinds of other topics as well. So how far do you think leadership can take you? You think you run into the cascading problem that Arun was talking about, or can you get it all the way down to the shop floor?
Thanks, Larry, for having me in this panel. Certainly, it was. I still remember it was February. It looks so far now. When we met during the Tata Group Safety and Operational Professional Conference conclave. So one thing what I saw, especially I remember you taking us through SafeStart, those third method of critical error reduction technique, which I certainly feel is one of the very simple and very objective techniques to improve improve our safety behavior at a personal level. That certainly I see as one thing. But coming back to the point you talked about, so really when you talk about child leadership, before that, I would say as a Tata Group, like you said, we got 39 plus companies, big companies, and for us, safety, well-being, and care for people in society has been always on the forefront. Starting from so many 150 years of this company. So, like I would like to say before that, some of those important aspects which I would like to talk about is long back. One of about 60 years back, one of our chairman JRD Tata, he said long back while talking to his senior management, saying that when there is a question of safety is concerned and there is a difference of opinion between you and your executives, and you need to decide on your judgment should prevail, always it should weigh more on the one side which is on the greater side of safety. Now this was a statement which comes from a great man about 70 years back. And I'm just thinking
Wow.
of Peter. So this is something, these are the statements, real time, what he said, I am quoting. It is guiding us as a company. So that's first part. Second, I see from like, for example, how do we feel? It's all about, like, say, like Dr. Savina said, Arun did mention, we are talking about great companies. Good companies always have all those safety systems, processes, KPIs, review systems, everything is there. I think my personal, understanding is what differentiates between good company and greater companies on safety journey and safety performance is about leadership. It's not only about leadership. I think the last mileage which can be how the leadership is felt by different strata of the company. For example, the MD of a company, how people, his next line management get a feel that the manager or the leader is really feel, is being felt his, like we want to ensure that safety is really in everybody. Likewise, it goes to the last line, which is at the shop floor. Now, with this background, what I would like to, instead of really giving a generic statement, I would like to share some of my experiences, in different companies and Tata, because I worked about more than a decade in this company, in this group. So I would say, I would give one example. It's simple. It's long back. One of the directors, while he was doing a travel or visiting to one of the plants, he was visiting a site and he happened to get a grievances from the workshop employees saying that our washrooms are not, they're not to the level what an officer's washrooms are. So they complained. So this director, what he did was he kept to the local line management. Okay, why it is so? Why people are complaining? The manager or the operation head says, we are following as per the procedure. So what the director he did is what he went to the field, he went to the washroom of the shop floor employee, and parallel to it was the one uh, washroom which was for the officers or the management. So he went to that. When he came out, he said, "What I want you to do is just change the label. For example, only for shop floor employee and only for manager. Just say swap it for a week or 10 days till they are, I cannot distinguish between two." So I felt, this is a good example of real-time example of one of our, group companies.
That's a good,
So
Ravi. That's a great story. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. But that's really good. And 60 years ago or 70 years ago, I remember that from the conclave. So that was fairly visionary for anybody 60, 70 years ago. But I'm certain, for India, that was amazing. For someone to want to run a company like that back then. I've heard some things like that, when I was at the John Deere Museum and things, some of those early people really, they were building a company that was going to last beyond their lifetime. And that certainly really impressed me that they want, safety was part of it, right? 50, 60, 100 years ago for some of these folks.
Larry, if you can give me, one more example, I would like to give, of where, one of, again, my company manager, again, and it's a very simple example, but that's what normally connects the people at a different level. So again, it was a case of an incident which happened with one of the employee of the work where he was on some Sunday, he was traveling on a bike and he met with an accident. And while he met with an accident, he was not wearing helmet, and he had a good injury, and he recovered. He recovered after 3-4 weeks. So, and as normally a good company does it, you do communicate even the off the job incident to all the companies and talking about what did the lesson learned by us. So helmet was one of the important things. So what happened again? It's a simple real well thing. MD of the company, what he did was he sent a personal mail to this individual saying that okay, I hope you are doing well. He checked with him about his health. That's one part. Second part, what he did was he said is when you come back, when you join us, when you recover, when you come back, you and me, and the MD said, you and me will run a campaign across the company about how do we ensure that all the people wear helmet when they are in two-wheelers. So I think it was another example of a senior leaders connecting with a person, he's working a total different one corner of the company, checking with on his health, and but ensuring that engaging himself, see to it the lesson is learned to all the company. I just said these are some examples.
That's great. Yeah, I had to tell all the SafeStart employees in India that I know it's a little bit cheaper, but you've got to get a cab with seatbelts. Sorry, you just have to. It might not be the first cab you can find in India with seatbelts in the back seat, but you've got to get a cab. You've got to get seatbelts, and also, just if anybody couldn't afford a helmet, I'll be happy to buy you one, right? But you can't be working at SafeStart and riding a motorcycle without a helmet. It's just we've got to we've got to be extending what we're doing to it doesn't matter to me where you die. You're not going to be able to come into work tomorrow and your family and everything else, right? So I really I think sometimes people worry a little too much about workplace safety and not enough about just safety 24/7, right? But the safety 24/7 will affect things at the workplace for sure. And Ravi, thank you very much for both of those. Dr. Pravina, how does I don't know how specific you want to get here in terms of the communication per week, but I was just wondering, how does your leadership group make their influence felt when, as you say, so many people are working at a client's building or at a distance? So how often would they typically, like a senior manager at JLL in your for West Asia, how often would they be communicating with your employees, and how would they communicate? And then what about their more local managers? How often would they be communicating with them?
So in a normal, pre-COVID era, the communication was on monthly basis, all the account directors needs to have a safety committee meeting that is mandatory. And on weekly basis, the account EHS professionals used to connect with all the, because since one account will have multiple sites across India, so they used to have a weekly EHS connect. And in addition to that, on daily basis, they used to review all the processes, procedures, implementation, and interaction with the ground floor team members. So that is a continual process which was happening. That is pre-COVID era. So the recent challenge which we faced during COVID was related to COVID communication. Because initially when we started out with the communication, the first communication related to COVID was sent around 25th of Jan. So within a couple of days, we realized nobody even opened their mail, and nobody had actually any idea of what COVID is. At that point of time, we had only 3 cases in India that too, they had traveled directly from the Wuhan to India. So there weren't any other cases in India. So it was a bit of too early for the team to realize that what COVID is and whether we have to take a note of it or not. So immediately we reached out to our leadership, MD, COO, and we started having discussion leadership meetings related to that on twice a week, and we started having webinars to communicate to the team. Yes, of course, these are all disinfection protocols basically, which we were trying to communicate. And this was almost 2 months before our government had released a disinfection protocol. So our government released it in March end, and we were communicating based on whose World Health Organization's recommendation and what we learned from our China counterparts. And we started working on it. And at that time, the top-down approach was effective. We had a selective, like our MDs would be communicating to the regional business director to account directors to every people on the ground. And we had opened up a command center also during that period. So it was a nodal command center where all 12,000 employees across wherever they are, they can communicate and ask for guidance related to COVID and recommendations and all. So that has been successfully going on since March. And even now, even during the lockdown, it was effective. And we got we also do a survey through engage a third party to do a survey, and we got almost 90+% in the distress support during COVID because of all these initiatives. The other point I would like to touch upon is, as Ravi pointed out, like when there is a difference of opinion, safety needs to proceed. So we actually faced an issue, I mean, on that perspective. This was regarding disinfection tunnels. At one point of time in India, I think in the month of March end and April starting, disinfection tunnels were mushrooming anywhere and everywhere, literally. And the public was trying to adapt to that disinfection tunnels, and even many companies adapted to that and they started installing it. And there were pressure coming back stating, because since this is a pandemic phase, everything was getting reviewed through EHS, all the new processes coming and all. So we had a connect on this product review and all, wherein MD, CEO and all were there, all the regional business directors. So we had to explain why disinfection tunnel is not safe. So the moment we explained, they made an informed decision of not going ahead with the disinfection tunnels, and we were not recommending it to our clients also. Even when our clients were coming to us, we were explaining to them these are the negative side effects of using a disinfection tunnel and it is not recommended. And this had proved Ravi's point of, like, whenever there is a difference of opinion, we always go with the safety side. So these are the things one.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Dr. Pravina. Narayan, sorry for me leaving you in the wings there for so long. I met a number of Reliance managers at the process safety management conference in Delhi, and that was in the first week of February too. Boy, seems so long ago. Tell me a bit about the effort, if you will, to change the culture at Reliance over the last few years, the amount of effort the leadership group had to make, and what are they doing now in terms of effort to be able to sustain that excellent culture?
Yeah, thanks, Larry. Before I go on this Fed leadership discussion, I would like to just talk about the Pipeline Infrastructure Limited, which is engaged in transporting the natural gas through the cross-country pipeline, which is of almost 1,350 kilometers length of the pipeline of 48-inch diameter, and wow, transporting 80 MMSCMD, that is the design capacity. This particular pipeline was originally owned and operated by the Reliance. Now this pipeline has been taken over by the Pipeline Infrastructure Limited. This is basically owned by the India Infrastructure Trust, which is sponsored by the Brookfield Asset Management Company, which is a global asset management company. And the Brookfield platform has got a lot of things like the infrastructure, commercial offices, renewable energies, and residential plots, and so on. And it also includes the pipeline infrastructure companies. And now coming to this, the felt leadership, as you are saying that you have met many Reliance guys, and Reliance has been doing very well on the leadership improvement programs. The felt leadership is all about the management actions that leads the employees of all levels across the organization, and that also makes sure that every employee feels the commitment of the management, that it is genuine, real, and respectable, and that is being felt by every employee of the Reliance, as well as the new company what I'm working with, the pipeline infrastructure. Now, to do this, there are various things which are being implemented by the management. But the first thing, as the Arun had said, that every company has got their vision, strategies, goal, objectives, and everything, and policies which are displayed. But only displaying doesn't help in really making people feel that the management is working for their safety in addition to the safety of the assets and equipments. So what we do, every quarter we conduct the town hall meetings with the employees, including the contractor workers, and confirming with them and reconfirming about the objectives, resources, goals which have been set in the beginning of the year, and whether we are able to achieve them or not. If not, what are the sources required? And by that, the people are feeling that yes, management is really concerned about the safety of the employees, and that is how they feel that yes, the leadership is felt. Apart from that, what is being done is like, leadership is nothing but about engaging with the people on personal level as well as on the professional levels. So on professional levels, what has been communicated to every employee and contractor worker is that safety is equally important as a production, quality, and cost. That is the message which is going to everybody. And
how long did it take? How long did that, just to get that mindset? How long did that take?
Say changing the mindset of the every individual right up to the bottom of the organization, it takes not less than 10 to 12 years. It is not the simple that 2 to 3 years.
First part though, that safety was equal to production, quality, and cost. Was that a couple of years, or did that take 3 or 4 years?
That took almost 5 years.
Okay, almost 5 years. Okay, just that part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would like to just give an example that one of the locations where there was a lifting job was to be performed using the Hydra, and the management has decided that we must use the new generation Hydra, because which is more stable and it can lift and shift the material. But the vendor, the contractor, brought this old generation Hydra, and our employees said nothing doing, we are not going to use your Hydra, no matter whether our timeline gets deferred. That is the kind of message which was even given by the lowest person in the organization to the vendors and the contractors. Similarly, what we do at our level is we organize the outstations, the incident timeline workshops. That means for the last 10 years, how many incidences have happened? What are the types of the incidences? What we do, we call the members from all the disciplines, including some of the technicians, and put them in one room, ask them, you think about the incidences which have happened for last 10 years, where it happened, what happened, how it happened, and what were the root causes of this particular incident, and how it is being implemented. And that is also, once they are coming out with those findings, and the projects are being devised, and those projects are again implemented, verified, and then make sure that the feedback is given to the employees. And that is how people are getting assurance that really the management is worried for the safety of the employees. Okay. Then and then also make sure that the leadership team always participates in the safety committee meetings which are conducted, and they also get involved into the high potential near miss incident investigations. In olden time, what used to happen, only when there used to be a fatality kind of thing, the top management used to get involved. But now the things have changed. Even the high potential near miss incidences, the management is getting involved. So these are the good things. Coming on this, engaging the employees on the personal front, what is being done is, for example, the whole world is passing through the pandemic COVID. Now, during this period, being the pipeline operation being the emergency services, it was on, and we cannot have all the people working together. So we had split all the people into two groups, and one group was continuing for 15 days to 21 days, so that in case somebody gets infected, at least we have a whole group to put on the road.
Right,
So what management is doing is that every person is being personally contacted by the CEO of the companies, just to give them the feel that yes, we do care, and we ask about their well-beings and everything. And also some of the members from the senior management team, they talk to their family members also to give them the assurance, yes, your people, the employees are safe at this site.
How many people do you have in the pipeline in the pipeline company?
We have around in the field, we have around 120 people at 10 compressor stations.
Wow, I haven't talked to everybody at SafeStart International since the crisis. Your CEO's talked to 110 people in the field. Wow, that's very impressive. Very impressive.
We talk to them through this webinar and all those things with individual employees, and that was a very good thing, and everybody in the field appreciated, yes, this is the first time which is happening, and that gave a very good confidence to everybody. Similarly, the things like, I would like to just how the management appreciate the efforts of the employees. We have our pipeline is located in isolated areas, and we have made a provision in the nearby hospitals that the snake bite antidotes are available. Now, in one of the village where our security guard was staying, he came to know that one of the villager had a snake bite. This particular security guard just got up and took that gentleman in a vehicle to a hospital where the snake bite antivenoms were provided by our own company, and the doctor could give the treatment, and the life of that particular person was saved. And this security guard did not inform anybody in the organization. When we came to know that, even at that time, our CEO just called him and said, thank you very much for doing this excellent work of saving the lives of the villager. And not only that, this particular person was called in the town hall meeting, and he was appreciated in presence of everybody. So this is how the appreciation is also being done.
Well done. That's excellent. Okay. I know we don't have too much time left, but I want to try to get a couple more questions in if I can, for sure.
Okay.
So Hector, I wanted to ask you, with all those contractors on site coming in and out, is it like with your leadership group there? I saw such a challenge because well, first of all, you're making gasoline. It can blow up. It's serious. So how? And you've also got, like you were saying with COVID when it came out, you had so many people that just returned back to their homes wherever they were from in India. So is it possible when you're about, I don't know, 15, 20,000 contractors on site sometimes? I mean, is it really possible for your leadership group to make their commitment felt to all of those people? And and how do they do it? How often do they communicate with with all of those folks. I mean, you do manage it really well, Hector. So if you can give us almost the play-by-play of how you do it, like how many talks per week, how many meetings, all the rest of that, that'd be great. But you've only got 4 minutes.
No, Larry, you know that safety is a journey. Yeah, it's a personal journey for every single professional and manager here and for every company. So everyone are facing different level of maturity in their career individually and as a company also. Every corporation has something to put in the table. So if you talk about contractors like Technimo and L&T, you're talking about two companies with very global health, safety, and environment management system in place. So these people are doing a fantastic job. So when you're partnership with companies like that, like Linde, for example, is another company working with us. They're doing a fantastic job. They have a world-class procedures. So this performance is actually also pushing the other contractors to move forward. So that's the first point. The first point is actually lead the leaders. This is the challenge here. Is lead the leaders to pull together. This is the first step. The second step that normally is a challenge when you are sitting in this board of directors with all the VPs and the head of the refinery. Normally the big challenge is to pick what is the focal point. What is the priority now? Well, where we have to put the focus right now to steer the organization in that direction. Most when you are facing a crisis situation like the one that we're facing right now.
Well, when I was there in February, there must have been 50 or 60 managers and supervisors from all the different contractors. I mean, certainly I remember Lindy, that were there. I mean, and they two and a half hours, like, like we were, with the questions and answers, very, very engaged. I mean, that's why I'm asking the question, because I'm used to contractors coming in because they have to come in, and the managers made them come in, and it looks like you can almost, you've got to have a cattle prod to get them into the room, right?
Well, but you know what happened, Larry? With those companies understand that safety is a competitive advantage with their competitors in the market, and the safety actually helped them to gain more market and to gain more area in the business. Let me give you an example. When I did a project in 2000 in Venezuela, we have a leader company that only did tanks in those days. This leader company was called CBI in 2000. Okay. We have also another leader company working for us doing piping fabrication. Cho Group. You know them because they were your clients. So then later, Cho, 6 years later, bought Stone & Webster. The piping fabrication company became a big EPCM company, owning a lot of patents about technology that used to be from General Electric. Actually, they own the high-density polyethylene technology. So then I take a look how life played. In those days, I was working for Japan Gas Corporation doing the project for PDVSA in Venezuela. Then later, I went to work for Cho. So when I was working with Cho, we also hired CBI to do fabrication of tank. And take a look what happened in 2011. CBI bought Cho.
Yeah.
Take a look what happened. So what was the difference here? Let me tell you what is the difference, Larry. CBI was always very well known in the reputation because they were very good in health, safety, and environment. They have very strong values for health and safety. They were doing very huge tanking projects with very good results and very high safety standards. Everybody knew that. That was very easy for them to get in the market. When people realize how important safety can be for their individual career to grow up in the organization, take a look what happened. Many managers that right now are sitting in the board of directors as a CEO, or maybe in a very high level in companies that coming normally from the finance department. Right now, they're challenging with the coronavirus, and most of the decisions they have to make are around health, safety, and environment. That's a reality.
Yeah.
So health and safety managers like me, like all the panelists that we have here, we have to play the role to teach these guys, to help them to go in their journey. So you have a lot of these people with different level of maturities and understanding. It's very challenging. Sometimes you
Yes.
are dealing with people that they do is they don't even preach. Then you have the other guy that preach but don't practice. Then you have the guy that preach and practice. This process takes 5 years. Well, you know, Narayan was doing fantastic. The timing that he was doing was amazing, because normally going from just I don't want to talk about safety. Safety is an obstacle for progress. This speech normally die in 1 year. Then they start to understand they have to preach, but they preach and they don't practice. That's normally take 3 years. And then after that, they realize they have to preach and practice, and they change in 5 years. So that's the reason that sometimes if the company really need to do or wants to do a very high speed cultural shift, you have to put, as a safety manager, a lot of pressure on the table. Okay, it's risky because you risk your job, you risk your position. And let me tell you, in my personal experience, I'm already 35 years in this business. And in the 35 years, I always said the safety managers and safety directors are good for 5 years. And the reason is that after you doing the cultural shifting for 5 years, you are giving away too much that you need to go to another place to start again from zero, because it's normally for you, it's very tough to move forward after the 5 years in the cultural shifting that you're doing in this organization. It's very stressful, and you put yourself in a lot of challenge individually. So, and this is the cost that you have to pay in this organization, I have to say.
But you have survived for 35 years, even if it was only 5 years at a time, Hector. You're doing all right. Like you said, Arun, you know, the walking the talk and making that part real and sincere is such a powerful tool. But it's got to be real. It's got to be it's got to be sincere. Ravi, I want to make sure I get to the question. Hector started answering it for us. But what can safety professionals do to help get more support from senior leaders? And I think that Hector, like you said, the challenge is part of it. In my experience, I've met about 500 plant managers, and unfortunately, the ones that were by far the most committed were all people that had had somebody die on their shift or on their watch. And that's just too expensive a way to get senior leadership commitment. I mean, so that'll work, Ravi, but it's pretty severe, right? So what else can we do? And what can we do so that, you know, we don't get fired? Like Hector was sort of saying, you know, you got to be a bit careful just how far you push the line there, right? You know, but what can safety professionals do that, you know, with comfort that and Arun and we'll try to get everybody to just you know, a couple minutes on this, and then we'll have to close out. But Sarah Vanakumar says we can extend 10 minutes if we want. So go ahead, Ravi, and we'll try to go around everybody. But you start, since you were the one who brought this up yesterday at the rehearsal. I think it's a great question.
Okay, thanks, Larry, and Hector. Excellent point. You know, very impressed. You know, your thought process. So just to connect exactly what you said is, I'm talking from perspective of the Indian perspective and my experience in the field. Safety professionals in India have changed over a period of time. You know, I'm saying maybe years, 10 years back, 20 years back, they were looked at the people who are more legal experts, technocrats, who make procedures, who give training, and who ensure compliance are, you know, managed. So this is what the right now, if you look at from perspective of how the world is changing, how criticality the safety come to the corporates and companies and as a value for many of the companies, the safety has become more a leadership position, and it is not a technical stuff only. So what I see is, as I would look at myself, and like you said, as a safety professional, depending on the people would be at a different phases of the people would be freshers, who are very relatively new to the field. There will be some middle and some would be experienced. So depending on what level of we are, we have to really do a little corrections to us. For example, with the changing scenarios, I would say as a one critical point would be need to have add up, being a change leader. I think that's one thing. Being an influencer, connect with the business. I think that would be a very critical point and very important point. What I see of is speak business risk language. Because what I've seen is, because I've been in this profession for quite some time, and safety professional, like here I'm talking my experience, we talk very technical. We talk, very technical, which is more a tactical aspect. And if I talk to a CEO and I talk about, risk and this thing, possibly he may understand it, but if I talk in a business, what is the connection with the business ethics and the value? So certainly he'll connect me first. So these are the four things I feel are important. But from for how do we really manage it? So here are my 4 or 5 inputs what I see. First of all safety professionals have to upskill themselves. First of all, like for example, change their mode of communication, especially depending on who you're talking to. If you say I'm talking to a CEO or an MD, I would have ensure that I talk in the point of risk and the outcomes. If I'm talking to a middle manager, plant head, or department head, I would talk in terms of systems and engagement. And if I'm talking to a person, to the shop floor guy, a supervisor, and a workman, I would like to talk about procedure compliance, so that they're able to connect it. And that's what I would see. It has to be up to yourself. Second, talking about keep connected with the leadership, because what I've seen is, again, my experience, at least in India, I would say, is safety people being seen only when, most of the time is when there is an incident and there is an update which has to be given the top management.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You come, you show, you give a show for some time, give what is happening good. If at all the bad is happening, you are the people who explain what would have happened. So these are times certainly people look at you as only this value. What I feel is, as a safety professional, we have to be part of the management of the leadership. We get connected to them, understand the business, and have a regular interaction with them so that we understand the pain of the line management. That what I would say. The second, these are the second part. Third part, other part I would say is more about me as a safety professional. I also have to calibrate my leadership. I have to give more information. What is happening in the industry? What are the different risks or incidents that happening? What other business are suffering from that? Because normally what happened over a period of time, the business head, the senior management has got their plate full. Possibly you are the guy who has to bring that value in front of his lenses so that he is more calibrated and engage them. Because I've used this experience of in my earlier company where there are some set of people, senior management, they are so engrossed in their daily critical routine, and if you get them engaged, they feel okay, that's something I was not being doing. So I took one of my operation head, talking to some seminar where, as an operation CEO of the company, when he talked to them about safety observation, all this, he felt, this is my regular. So he got engaged. And once I have it, I win him much more over, and I see him doing it much more often. And the last point, I would expect, or maybe as a safety professional, see to it if you're able to get more line management in the field and talk more on proactive safety.
Yeah, I find myself, Ravi, that if I can take a senior manager out and get into a conversation with an employee, with that senior manager, I can also see his or her skills at that. And so I know, okay, look, this is not a comfort level area for this person. I need to help him or her a bit more in terms of going out and talking to plant. They don't have a comfort level talking to the plant floor workers, right? They just like the plant floor guy doesn't know how to explain cost of capital. They don't really know what's up with the fork truck either, right? So they don't want to go into conversations where you know, the technical aspects of confined space entry or things like that, or that, and their lack of knowledge is they're afraid that people are going to think you don't know. I've also had some really good experiences where, you know, I got a vice president to learn how to self-trigger, and then he did it, you know, when somebody cut him off on the freeway, instead of him going and cutting the other guy off, he actually just chilled out and said, you know, wait a minute. And then he went, oh my God, this works. Well, we got to do this. We got to, you know, so if you can somehow do something with them so that they see that the activity works for themselves. I'm going to quote my brother here, but it's never true till it's true for you. But once they experience it, it's really powerful. And I think it's great that senior managers get involved at looking at serious injuries and fatalities, but there's a real risk at looking at everything in retrospect because it invites blame, right? You got to get them out there where it's proactive. So Arun, let me ask you how, if you've got a senior manager that isn't comfortable out there doing the, you know, the walk arounds, the walk the talk, you know, the engaging the employees out there, how do you help that person?
Larry, I think there are a lot of good points brought out by Narayan, Hector, Ravi, and Pravina. And some of the things which I felt is that, yes, as Hector rightly told, that you have to put it on the table in a very firm way that what the senior leadership have to demonstrate and genuinely demonstrate to see that the visible leadership is translated down below. This is one thing to achieve a better safety result. The other point which I want to say is leaders are not just on the top. I want to repeat it, as very rightly Narayan said, that a security can take care of a person without any expectations, and that's a genuine reflection of a leadership from a security himself. The other point which I want to say, actually there's a saying called nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So if you are really able to care, I've seen in the field many times that people walk into the field and just say, hey, why you're not wearing a helmet, or why you're not wearing your glasses, but they don't ask what's the reason for that. They don't get into a dialogue. They just make a sort of instruction walk pass, which itself is a sign that nobody cares. So what I see is the leadership is something has to trickle down to all levels, and leadership is something that people have to make sure that the whole message is percolated well down below and is very inclusive in nature. I told you many times there are so many examples that we send senior leadership for night walks. We send senior leadership, non-manufacturing people like finance, HR to the field so that they sign on a paper when they sign the budget for you, when they sign the appointment of a person for you, they realize that this is very, very essential for the company. So what challenges we have is people don't realize the importance because of their ignorance. So we need to expose more non-manufacturing people to understand the safety requirements of a company. This is one thing. The other thing is that we should also see to that, like for us, what we do is we have a sort of Coromandel. The top management is very, very passionate of safety. And since last 3 years, we have an unbudgeted amount of 25 lakhs per unit, which is kept aside for any sort of contingency for safety. And I think that sort of an approach also gives a message to the people down below that the management really cares, the leadership cares, and leadership from whichever level it is. We have to also make sure that when we communicate to the people down below, we also have to get a feedback on how they take it. I mean, unless you realize that the communication has reached in the right way, many times you communicate, but has it reached them the right way? Did they understand what is the requirement of it? Or is it, as somebody was rightly telling, that when you go and work in a confined space, for me, a lot of responsibilities on the supervisor. I may give a training on what is oxygen level, what is the escape routes, and all these, but unless I care personally for my people there, that's not going to work, because your focus shift. And that I want to just end one point. I just want to end with one point, saying that we had a discussion 2 days back, and there was one point brought out that many times there is no risk-based approach taken. The reason for that is many of the engineers wear a hat of management instead of wearing an engineer's hat. They don't communicate the risk to them.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry,
And
yes.
that's a very serious issue with organizations.
My father's
So I
an
just
engineer.
want to stop with that.
And he's still telling me
So
how
I
to
just
run the
want to
company.
stop.
It's okay. He's 90 years old. But that's so very true, though. That if you think even about the old risk matrix, you know, probability of occurrence, probability of severity on the y-axis. That's all true for like wire ropes, metal fatigue. The metal doesn't care if it breaks, but the people do. So as soon as it gets dangerous, things change, right? But rarely are any of those human factors put into the risk assessments as well. Dr. Pravina, I'm just going to wrap up with you because we're out of time. But what any tricks of the trade that you could pass on to fellow safety professionals in terms of how? I mean, I don't want to give you all the credit because JLL management all over the world that I've worked with has been good. But what did you do that that got you so much support from your senior leaders in this area?
So,
Or what could safety professionals do to get as much support? Maybe I don't want to get, like I said, I don't want to, but what? Go ahead, just.
So as Ravi and Arun were pointing it out, like we need to project the worst case scenario in a language which could be understood by the senior management, rather than taking the safety assessment sheet, HERA sheet, and showing them that these are the probabilities. They may or may not understand. Rather than that, just I usually go for the worst case scenarios. I just say a person will die if this happens. Are you going to take
Right.
I mean in charge for that? Or the brand will get impacted, or there might be legal complications coming in, people might be put behind bars. So these are the terms I usually use to convey
Well,
what is the worst case
Dr.
scenario.
Praveen, I've done the same thing with the ski coaches, like with the kids. Like they're real. These are really good skiers. But I told the coach, I said, you do realize that if one of these kids makes a mistake here, the kid will die, and you will be
Yeah.
the person that sent them down that hill when they didn't have to go. And he said, well, Larry, you're going to ruin everybody's fun. I said, there's other ways to have fun. You don't have to do one, like one barrier between you and the potentially hazardous energy, unless you can't avoid it, is my, you don't go gleefully doing this, like not with, if it's by yourself, that's fine, but not when you're the coach, right? So it's a bit heavy-handed, but he stopped it right there. I said, you know what'll happen, Ken. I mean, everybody will know that you're the one who did this, right? But and Ken still talks to me, so I think you can be firm, and I think you can get away with it. But I think like Hector said, you've got to be careful too, right? I mean, the idea is to make it better. The idea is not to go in and get fired, right? So make sure make sure you get that in your head before you go in with both guns blazing, so to speak. We're out of time, everybody, but we are going to have in 3 weeks a series of 6 webinars. We're going to do 2 more difficult questions. The first one is going to be on just culture and accountability. And how do you balance a just culture and also hold people and managers accountable for their personal safety, performance, decisions, et cetera, right? So a very, very controversial topic, but I also want to get into other discussions with you folks that are more, you know, like why young workers get hurt when they're inexperienced, they don't have any training, makes perfect sense. But why do older experienced workers get hurt and killed at almost the same frequency has been a bit of a mystery for a lot of safety professionals over the years, right? So we want to get into, you know, a few more difficult decisions, and then also some difficult questions. So hopefully everybody, you can join us in 3 weeks. It'll probably be at exactly the same time. Hopefully the panelists that are with us can join us. If not, hopefully they can join us for one of the 6 upcoming. And again, thank you very much, everybody, for listening and attending. And we look forward to seeing you for the next series of 6 expert panel webinars in India. And again, thank you very much, all of the panelists. I really like talking with you guys. Like I could do it for hours, but we're already way over time already. So I'll say goodbye to everybody, and thank you again very much. And everybody, you'll all get an email recording and everything like that of the webinars, and we'll send you out the next series of 6 and the dates and the times. So thanks again, everybody. Okay. Hopefully we'll see you all in 3 weeks. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, Larry. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.